agree. It's so much about being present. The executive piece is something that has come up through cultures and societies to say the leader, the top person, has the gravitas, has the power, has the authority, all of those things that we imagine leaders have comes with that executive presence. And that's a lot of pressure because, to what Jen said, what is that? What does that come down to? And it really is, I agree, it's an inside belief. And it's your power, your ability to have that authority, what your ability is to have your own charisma, who you are as an individual. It's not something you get or take. It's really taking those natural instincts you have and parts of your personality and just bringing them to the surface.
So true, so true. And Elizabeth?
I would say, I always think of it as a dance, because executive presence is actually something that exists in the minds of others. So other people will say, well, you just don't have the executive presence for it. Sometimes it's code for, we don't want to hire you. We don't want to promote you. We can't really tell you why. But there's a lot you can do, as the other two have said, about standing in your power and showing up as a leader. I think of it as, as you speak, with the style, the way you speak, and who you're speaking to, so that executive presence, whatever they think it is, there are a lot of things that you can do to show up as a strong, committed, interesting communicator. And then there's a lot of strategy behind it. But basically, show up as someone who's strong and grounded and in your own authentic power. Easier said than done.
Yeah, it is easier said than done. I love these perspectives. One of the things that I think everyone really touched on was this idea of kind of inside outside. So that idea that we truly are looking at our perspective, the way that we're feeling about things, but that really impacts what other people see. And Shelley, why is this so important?
This is how we look for our mentors. Who's going to inspire us? Who do we want to emulate? Who do we want to learn from? Mentors aren't somebody necessarily you seek. We kind of find each other, right? Any mentor I've had, I found. And that person had a leadership quality. It was something that was personal to them. It was their story, their journey, and the things that I was inspired or influenced by, I really respected. And that wasn't anything that was put on as an act or a performance. It was something that came from that person sharing their journey organically.
That's beautiful. And Jen, why would you say that this is such an important topic? What is the impact of executive presence or not having it?
If you don't have it, you're covering your butt and your mind is not on your team. That's the bottom line. So when I think about working with people, and Christy just put up she said, I'm curious to hear how confidence plays a part in executive presence. We talked about authority starting from the inside out, and I work with women to lead with more authority, influence, and impact. And I specifically chose those words. Why? Authority, authenticity, author, all have the root word of AUTH. That's the Greek word for self. I think executive presence starts from the inside out and connects to confidence, because when we are true to ourselves, we have this experience I equate to feeling like you have this taproot sunk so far into the ground. People have an opinion about you or a perception. And I always tell people, what other people think of you is none of your business. What you think of you, make it your business. So in those moments when we can anchor our confidence, anchor our authority in our authentic expression of who we are, what other people think are no longer important. In those moments, then we are grounded and confident. Then we can actually look outward and look at, okay, how do I influence? How do I breathe life, bring energy?
But it goes beyond just getting the role. It goes to doing the role. People pay attention to you. People are listening to your message. People will actually give more energy and effort to someone that they trust, that has that presence and leadership and that they have confidence in. And so this truly can make a huge difference in your day-to-day. But let's talk a little bit about some of the myths. So when people say executive presence may mean certain things, what are some of the misconceptions that people might have about this?
It's not, again, it's not putting on a mask. It's this idea, it's a label that has been constructed. It's the same thing as saying, I can't share personal stories in a business environment. Who made that rule? Who said it's only facts and features and benefits, everything that you can read on a website or on a box top? That's not who we are as individuals. So when you get down to the myth of executive presence, it's this outer being. I have to be like this.
Yeah.
And what we're saying here is you have to believe. You have to have the belief within yourself, within your journey, within your stories, the things you've done well and the things that you've failed at. All of those things together is your story, unique to you, who you are. That belief, that understanding is your confidence. That's going to carry you through to have that presence of an executive power just by believing in yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. One of our questions that somebody submitted was, which this is reminding me of it, is do you consider authenticity and vulnerability essential in executing effective leadership? As someone who often overworks these particular elements, oversharing, how can someone balance establishing professional boundaries and authority while also keeping things authentic and at specific times vulnerable?
Is this just open? Go ahead, Elizabeth. You had.
Oh,
I know, me too. I'm like, I've also got things to say about what Shelley and Elizabeth just said too.
Okay. Well, first of all, when you are out there talking, when you're sharing, make it concise and make it to the point. And I heard somebody say the other day that stories are about you, but for them.
Mm-hmm.
It's all for who's listening and how are they listening. So are you going to speak a language that they can understand? And if in a business situation, tell a story that has a point. Yes, it can be a personal story, but it needs to relate to what's going on. The trap that many of us fall into is telling like the whole story that started back from the dawn of time and all the context, and you go on and on and on and on and on, and people tune out. Mm-hmm. So some of that is the art of constructing a story and then practicing saying a story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Yeah.
Stories stick. Facts, figures, like what Shelley was talking about. Who said that, you can't say things that are personal at work? I always tell my leaders, look, twofold. One, there's a distinction between personal and private.
Yeah.
If you've got to come into my office or I notice, you're not in a great mood, all you have to say to me is, I'm having a bad day. I've got family stuff. You don't have to give me the whole thing that your ex-husband walked out on you and left you a Post-it note and the bottom half of the house was empty. Okay, that was me, not anybody else I know, but that actually happened. Number two, I think what I train my leaders in is what I call visceral shares. You start with the point. We just released 11 new items that gave us a total, for our new company that cost a total of $285,000, but our profit margin on this is $450,000. Here's why that's important. And I always tell people 2 minutes. The point, if you want to use a couple of facts to back it up, and then the share at the end, I tell them, because people get caught up in their own words. And my point is, that's the phrase I tell them to use. And my point is, we're going to make a lot of money on this product for this new line of this whatever engine that we've just released. And Elizabeth is dead on. Practice. I tell my clients, practice it in the mirror 3 times. On the 3rd time, the person in the mirror will get it, and you'll stop wondering why this side of my hair is not as curly as this side of my hair.
I love this. Yeah, I think, again, when we're talking about some of the myths to start with, I think there is an idea that I heard echoed about this. We're putting on this persona. We're putting on this false person as opposed to tapping into our true self. I think that can be a piece of it. I think the fact that it is tied to kind of any one of these things is also a little bit of a myth. It is a combination of things, which makes it a little more challenging. It is that decision of where is the balance between being open and sincere and warmth and authentic and oversharing and, making it about me and being too passionate. I think that there really is a balance, and is a difference in those circumstances. And so understanding how to kind of use maybe all of the tools in our toolkit. And to Sue's question earlier about clothes, you absolutely don't need to be wearing something in particular to have executive presence. But if clothes are a part of what makes you feel confident and what makes you feel welcome in certain audiences, absolutely lean into not only your verbal communication, but your nonverbal communication, your clothes, your gestures, your voice, as Elizabeth is so well able to do. Again, I think the fact that there are so many pieces to this makes it sort of challenging, but also really fun. We can look at what we're good at, and we can also look at maybe where we might want to have more balance in some of the skills that we're bringing to the presence.
Great news. The conversation continues. When you subscribe, like, and ring the bell, you'll know when a new episode has released. As always, speak remarkably.